are we going to have our 100th episode? How far are we?
Oh my gosh.
Far, because we only just started.
Wow.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Relebogile Mabotja Podcast. It is another episode. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you can be the first to know when a new conversation is up. And of course, comment down below with who you want to see on the podcast. Now, today's episode, I feel like it's going to be a little bit messy, but definitely very fun. Lebo Mashile is in the building. Why did you start laughing already?
Our love language is shady memes.
It really is.
I don't know where this is going to go, honestly. I was like so anxious.
Please explain to me, why do people, like, you know me in real life, why do people get nervous about us having interviews?
Because in your professional life and in your personal life, you are two different things, very different things. You're this objective, serious journalist. You ask the hard questions, and then the DMs.
Hot mess.
Mess Fontaine, the shadiest.
The shadiest of
the
them
shady,
all.
and that's where we connect.
Speaking of DMs, other than me, who is in your DMs?
Who, guys? Ben 10s and other people's husbands. I'm in the season of blocking. I'm telling you, Chela. You know, if I was really as full of nonsense as some people think I am,
yes,
I would be blasting left, right, and center. Keeper. Ben 10s and other people's men.
Okay, let's
Johannesburg.
clarify. What qualifies for you as a Ben 10, like the age? Because
interesting.
I am now turning 40 soon.
Okay, yes.
So for me, Ben 10 would be 30 and younger.
I'm of the same opinion. I'm 45, so I feel like a 10-year window is still a reasonable window. Like a 35-year-old has got his stuff together, like has a job, has his own place, is pretty much stable, is a grown man, I feel like there's still, if now I'm getting into late 20s, guys, I can't
What if he's like a Mark Zuckerberg in his late 20s? Like a tech what?
I'm not sure. You know why? Let me tell you something, okay? It's things are starting, and here I am taking out my business. This is what I was afraid of. Okay, so here's what you must accept about the Ben 10s, or let me say what I've accepted about the Ben 10s, is that you're doing. At the end of the day, you're doing community service. I knew
you were going to say, you're doing the Lord's work.
You are doing the Lord's work. Let me tell you something. Because what's an investment, wa polisha, wa freifa, wa aha, wa beya, wa puta, you know what I mean? Like, not like you're going in there to try to be controlling, but you've got life experience. They're going to come out of there wiser, a better lover,
but on a serious
exposed to more.
I don't imagine you being with a Ben 10 and being that invested. I don't see you, aina di underpen. I don't see you being that invested.
It's so funny. You got microwave. Oh my God, waiting for him to come back.
Not even in a microwave with the scrumelo and the tray is waiting.
Katuko. Oh my God, that's like 50 Shades of Hell. Let me tell you what the last Ben 10 I went on a date with did.
Tell me.
That's when I realized, no, I'm not built for the game. I retire. I'm off to fix myself and heal. I go on an amazing date with this guy. Things are going good. How distant. Okay, sharp. That's not gonna happen. Didn't the streets expose? Or the same time this person became distant was the same time somebody else was busy pregnant. A Ben 10. And I won't say who it was.
The only question I'll ask is, was he Nigerian? Because I know that's your flavor.
Stop it! Stop! Why?
I know your favorite dish is jollof.
And
not ya Ghana, ya Nigeria.
Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Is it? What?
Okay,
What must you can happen?
Wait,
no, but he wasn't Nigerian. He
Okay.
wasn't Nigerian. Domestic here, born, bred, buttered in South Africa. But I mean, but you're not wrong in asking the question, because Mina, I am African Union.
You are
Pan-African
African Union.
Even beyond, you
Yes.
know, I'm building the world.
You really are. So I have to then ask, you said in your DMs, Giddy Ben 10, but you also said married men.
But Hore, I'm so annoyed.
What? Okay, what
I'm
annoys you?
I'm just like, if you are married, like you really think, Corina, I'm gonna be interested. You really think, and you really think, Corina, I owe it to you, to protect your reputation. Like, I mean,
So these are public figures.
if some of them, if women and gays had to turn our DMs inside out, I'm telling you, the community would be
Nah.
in tatters. Families would fall apart. Nations would fall. There's no abanadi breaky. The audacity is at an all-time high.
I thought you were going to say it upsets you because they see you as a side chick and you're so much more.
Vele. I'm like, how do you look at me and think, Hore, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to sit in this position.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep quiet about this. I'm not going to expose you. But, where do you even start to unpack the audacity? Yabanna.
Well, I would assume that the way men generally operate, whatever they've sent you, they've sent to 20 other girls.
Vele, and
Because
the
they
injalo.
hope Hore,
Somebody's
gonna bite. I've also had well-known public figure, committed married men in my DMs and paisa quietly
Good.
where I need to. Yes, I will.
Good.
Especially if it's within my circles.
Good.
Paisa.
Excellent.
What I would have done differently now that I'm turning 40 is maybe like blackmail them for some money.
Wow, that's a good idea. I never thought about
like
that.
I should have been like, okay, cool, I won't tell if umpa. And now I don't want like Birkins and Louis Vuittons.
No.
I want gold bars.
I love it for you.
Thank you.
I
Are
love
we
it
going to
for you.
start this
Let's
thing?
start. Let's have a strategic session. We can involve Chat GPT.
And then-
come up with multiple strategies. How do we blackmail
All these people.
with audacity? The ones with the
Yes.
highest of audacity.
Yes.
How do we approach
gold bars?
retirement plan, babes?
I feel like so many people only know you from the Twitterverse. They don't know the Lebo Mashile that some of us grew up with, who, I mean, I will always give you your flowers just in terms of the fact that you were able to put words, and it's so easy when they say, oh, it's a poetry, like, because poetry has some connotations in terms of how poets can present themselves and the things that they do, where it almost looks overly performative as opposed to about the words. But for as long as I have known you, you've been consistent in what you do. I actually just remembered that we did an event together I must have been early 20s, maybe 2021.
You were
Long ago,
performing with,
I was Kunle Ayo.
Kunle Ayo. That was the first time
Yes.
that I saw you sing. I remember
was
that
singing
function.
there.
It was like a woman's function.
Yes,
Kopitori,
it
ne?
was a woman's
Yes.
thing. And you have never like, you're like an oxtail stew that just keeps getting better and better.
Thank you.
Like the meat gets more tender. Now the
Oh,
reason it's
thank
important
you.
for me to mention this, I want to know, Hore, do you feel like our social media engagements have diluted the things that in general we've worked for because of the accessibility, because now you can be reduced to a tweet when you have bodies and bodies of work? Like, I don't think people even know that you get commissioned to write things specifically for projects. You aren't just,
Often.
I don't think they know about a multitude of things.
Often. I mean, so next year will be 25 years that I've been in the game as a poet. 20 years since I started on television. I've performed in 40 countries. I regularly do commissioned work as a poet, as a playwright. I've acted in film. I've acted in theatrical productions. I've produced theatrical productions and for television, and my own work, recordings. I've collaborated with a range of designers across mediums, a range of artists across mediums, from fashion designers to filmmakers
You're
to
a published
musicians.
author.
I'm a published author. I've recorded. I'm a voiceover artist. I've voiced for CNN. I've voiced for campaigns. I've voiced for ads. I continue to do that work. So on any given day, I mean, I could be rushing from an audition to a voiceover to a workshop to a gig to and I'm always in the middle of some script, writing, learning, prepping. I'm prepping for Indoni in KZN next week. I'm prepping for Saudi Arabia just before Christmas. So it's ongoing. So when I engage on social media, I guess also because I started using social media just as a way of being able to express myself. I loved the fact that it offered alternative opinions.
Yes.
I loved the fact that it gave us a way of being able to connect directly with audiences outside of mainstream media.
Yes.
I loved the fact that you could use it to get opinions from people, thinkers outside of the mainstream, like, you know, people who were talking back to what was happening in the mainstream. That I found really exciting. So I was never, as much as I have and continue to use it to say, oh, this is what I happen to be working on. The bulk of what I do, I've never used it to aggressively sell myself, which I think may have been a mistake. I was using it.
Really?
Well, I don't know. You know, sometimes I think about it. I'm like, you know, when you look at like the kind of information that's put out there by social media strategists, and I mean, now it's a whole sector, you know. So I'm like, I've got 250,000 people on different platforms. I should have used this very differently.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm also like, I appreciate the fact that I used it organically as well, because it allowed me to organically participate in the shifts that social media has inspired. And for that, I'm really grateful for. I'm grateful for the fact that when, you know, the political changes that have happened globally in the last 10 years, from Fees Must Fall to Black Lives Matter to We Are Nomzamo to the exposure of rapists and abusers in the entertainment industry in this country, around the world, you know, social media gave us a place to be able to talk about this and to unpack this and to mobilize. But I think also that's what has led to the toxic climate on social media right now, is that no one is going to allow people to have that much power, black people, feminists, queer people, to have that much power, you know? So it makes sense that an Elon Musk went and bought Twitter, you know what I mean? And turned it into a hell house, you know? Not that Twitter has ever been safe.
And we're still rolling there.
And we still neck deep. Oh my God.
Still knee deep.
I'll never leave. But I don't know how, let me say, I guess I do know how, but I don't, in my own spirit, I don't know how to position myself as a celebrity. I've never been about that life. Do you know what I mean? I'm a working artist, and my passion has always been, how do I make poetry live in different places, you know? So right now I'm excited about scale. I'm excited about what we did, Go Miss South Africa, working with screens and sounds and dancers and sets. And how do you take this art form from, you know, the organic that people know, a poet and a microphone, and then how do you expand it? How do you make it speak to other art forms? That's where my head is at. I think we are poorer in South Africa for a lack of meaningful investment in making culture accessible. You know, when I was starting to work in media and entertainment, there was a myriad of platforms that you could go to, you know, to see different kinds of artistic offerings that were happening across the board in South Africa, from head wrap to the work that Maria and Kutlwano were doing at Rage, you know, to culture, to all these interesting different shows on television. Cultural journalism was also thriving. So there was
even shows like yours are not there anymore.
People ask me, people are like, where are you? How come we don't see you on TV? I was like, do you think, or like, where do I fit in the greater landscape?
But you know, interestingly, because you also did the parenting show, I still think, you know, and this is me thinking as a producer, I could come up with 4 different shows that I think would fit you perfectly.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate that. I also feel like, but I also, I guess, television, the beautiful thing about television is that it puts you literally in people's laps. And once people experience you that way, you will always have a place, right? So I will forever be Osolo Etsang poetry, wako Latitude. I will always be that. 20 years later, I'm still that. And I appreciate that because that like is a measure of the impact that show has had on people's lives. And not everybody who works in the field of media and entertainment gets to experience that, you know? Silo will forever be known for generations, you know what I mean? Unkusheng, you know what I mean, right?
Forever.
Queen, like forever. Yes. So when you do something that has that kind of impact, it's really, it's a blessing, you know? It's a blessing to be able to create that kind of television that becomes like a part of the South African canon, right? But I've always been, I'm a crazy artist. That's what I am.
And I think the reason I connect with you so much, other than the fact that people think we both hate men.
And we are both committed jolofinas.
Is there's a crazy artist thing about you that you've never lost, because at the end of the day, this is a business.
It's
right?
so easy to become jaded.
Yeah, and we have to allow ourselves to play and have fun. And I wondered if being a mom helped with that.
A lot.
Like, did your art become better after becoming a mother? Did you give birth to new words, my baby?
Pause. So, you know, I'm observing and also participating in the kind of conversations that I'm seeing that feminists are having around motherhood, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are like, we don't want to be moms. And I think it's great, actually, to have women finally get to a point where we can say with our chests, I don't want to be a mother. I'm funukshata. I want to enjoy my money. I want to travel the world. I mean, statistically, they've done studies that show that single unmarried women are some of the happiest demographics of humans on the planet, right? So I appreciate the fact that we are in this moment where people can make that choice. I thought that I would be that kind of person.
Really?
Honestly.
As in like a child-free...
Until I was peeing on the stick.
Oh, wait. Prior to peeing on the stick, it doesn't start with peeing on the stick. Please. It does not start with peeing on the stick. Please. Kids.
Look.
Okay. Wait. I'm taking us 2 questions back. Are you a feminist, firstly?
Definitely.
Okay. And I'm going to come back to what the definition of feminism is. But
definitely.
On this motherhood thing.
Okay, on this motherhood thing.
So let's reverse.
I get I'm building
you're
to
a feminist,
poetry and motherhood.
Yes, but you don't hate men.
No.
Because we're not orata ing. I just want to clarify, because at some point you were peeing on a stick because there's something that you like.
I'm multifaceted.
So you pee on the stick, are you freaking out?
So I'm freaking out. In the back of my mind, I'm like, yo, what's going on? Wait, what? The math is not mathing.
But the biology is biology.
So I remember I had gone to the Harare International Festival of the Arts with a production called Threads with Moving Into Dance.
Yes.
My period was late. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's God just being nice so that I don't have to have my period
while traveling.
Come back still. Zwap. Like nothing. A drop. I'm like, wait a minute. You know, like, I promise you, sometimes I ask myself, like, what was God thinking when you made children the byproduct of sex? It's like so irrational.
It's sabotage for us.
Waiting, the logic. It's
because
such faulty. And a child is a big thing to get out of an act that is so nice. So I felt like I was finally, 8th grade biology was making sense. Oh, kana sex is abana. Ooh, this is real.
How old were you when this happened?
I had my first son when I was 31. So I was
That's not even young.
I was just about to turn 32. His birthday's tomorrow. Tomorrow he's turning 14. And then my birthday's in February. So I was just about to turn 32 when I gave birth. So this would have been when it was the year of the World Cup. I'm there peeing on the stick. And in my heart, I say, oh, God, I hope I'm pregnant.
Is it?
Yeah.
So there was something in you.
Yeah. And it was the first time that I kind of allowed myself to admit to myself that, wow, I really want to be a mom.
Can I tell you my theory?
Yeah.
You always thought you were not going to be a mom because of what you saw and experienced, and you understood the gravity of that little person growing up to have their own thoughts, their own opinions. So there's a part of you, I believe, that was like, I will never have kids because you truly understand on a spiritual, on all levels, the gravity of bringing a soul into this earth.
This Armageddon. Yo,
being
guys.
responsible for the soul. And then on top of that, that same soul is going to mirror everything you are, right?
Yes.
Which means that you are going to have to face, and it's not a one-time facing, it's every day facing parts of yourself that you might not have processed or worked through. So in that moment of the peeing on the stick, where your secret hope came out is because you don't want to fail as a mother.
Yeah, it's
and
so
maybe
true.
you were worried that you might be a bad mom.
It's so true. It's so true. How do you bring a child into this world? I haven't fully healed. I'm still grappling with so much. What about this relationship that I'm in? What about black tax? What about I'm an artist? What about
And Kirata groove.
Hey! Hey!
Like all of it. Right?
And all you look. Aww. Being honest, having children colonized my 30s. So I had my first child when I was 31, going on 32. I had my second baby when I was 37. They're now 14 and 8. So my 30s were spent, thank God for my family, because they helped me raise my kids while I spend, like you, like 25, 30% of my time on the road, So if I didn't have my mom, if I didn't have my sisters helping me raise my kids, I wouldn't be able to be me. But that also comes with additional responsibilities. If they take care of my kids, I have to take care of them. I have to, so I was, and I mean, small kids, just like it's the feeding, the back and forth, the school, them being sick, that. So my 30s were dedicated to small children. When I turned 40, I'm 45 now, I realized it's somewhere around the pandemic. I was like, oh, wait, no more leaky boobs.
Yes.
These people sleep through the night. I can go watch a theater production.
I got this.
When the world opened back up after COVID, I felt like I was opening again to the world,
Wait, but tell us about...
So the art form, I feel like for me I think being a mother, like being an artist, like being a creative is a calling, I don't think if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't bring a child into this world if you honestly don't feel like being a parent. That goes for mothers, that goes for fathers. Like, strap it up, get an IUD, handle your business. We don't need more people who feel unloved and isolated and uncared for in the world, right? But if this is something that you want and you feel strongly in your heart and in your spirit, and you happen to be a feminist as well, right? I feel like pregnancy, parenting, raising kids made me sharper. It deepened my feminism. It expanded my heart in ways that I never thought were possible. It gave me an empathy for myself that I never thought was possible. Like, I had to when you parenting while reparenting yourself,
right?
You get this double mirror, right? Your child is showing you who you are, but then I'm also seeing my own inner child and what the ways in which I was not given what I needed to feel safe, to feel valued, to feel loved in the world. And not that my parents did absolutely the best that they could, like all of our parents did. But you think about like the environment and the ecosystem that they were in during apartheid,
and we have
right?
to just remind everybody, you grew up in exile.
Yes.
At some point you left home.
Yes.
And then you were living in the US, and you really are a child of the world and a global
Ke ngwana wa
citizen.
lefatshe.
Literally.
Madichaba.
And I think what you are sharing about motherhood, I mean, I get so emotional because I am yet to find the words to so accurately depict that human experience.
It's expansive.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like I grew beyond what I thought the limitations of this life would be, and what I'm measuring success by, or what I'm using to calculate what happiness is, or what success is, what growth is completely different. You know what I mean? Like, if I hadn't had kids, I would be probably measuring success by how many books I've written, or how many, or what festivals, and I still, those things are still important to me. But now I'm thinking about, how can I raise children who don't have to experience the same kind of trauma? How do I raise people who have love in their hearts? How do I raise people who contribute positively to the society, as boys, as men? What does it mean to support non-patriarchal boys and men in a society like South Africa? Because I also now I understand that if we are raising the kind of men that we want to see, it means that these young boys are also going to be isolated, ostracized, are going to experience the same kind of backlash.
Because the world is not necessarily
ready for them.
So let me ask then, in terms of, first one, you admitted, like, okay, I hope I'm pregnant.
Yes.
And it is a scary, exciting feeling, because I know I went through the same. You're freaking out, but you're kind of excited.
Yes.
It's a very bizarre experience.
It's very bizarre.
And then, because you also constantly are in shock. Like, I look at my son regularly, like, are you a person? Are you real?
I still look at them when they sleep.
Yes, like, did I make you?
Like,
yes.
Oh my God, it's a whole human that came out of me.
What happened when you found out about the second one?
The second one. So I had the experience of having been through a very public pregnancy with the first one.
Yes.
With and this was not the world of Cardi B on Instagram with her belly out, or Beyonce at the Grammys with her belly out, or Rihanna. It was stop booking you, and I didn't expect that. I didn't know that was going to be the fallout. So I announced, Tori, woo, yay, woo, did a big cover story, yay. And then gigs just dried up. And I was like, just again, like, feminism has helped me so much, because it's always the first principles that I come back to kind of deconstruct everything, right? So I was like, okay, people think that when you have a baby, you must just rest. It means you're tired. But now what about
who's paying the bills?
Who's paying the bills? How am I supposed to pay my bills? So, okay, got through that during the financial crisis and the fallout of, 08 and 09 and 2010, And then when I got pregnant with the second baby, I was like, I am not telling a soul. People will find out when this baby is out of my belly. So the anxiety then, and imagine, Great Expectations had just been canceled. So, and I did that show for 5 years. Everybody was waiting for me to have a baby on the show. When my eldest was 5 months old, I got that job. And it was the best thing that had ever happened to me, because it was,
right up your alley.
Right up my alley, live TV, community of women, speaking to incredible experts. It also healed my experiences that I've had in television, because TV can be very toxic as well. It comes with its own baggage, right? But this was a production team that was very intentional about wanting to build community and understand. And the production team behind Great Expectations understood that for the overwhelming majority of mothers that we were talking to, they didn't have access to private healthcare. They got one clinic visit a month, and then they got us. You know, so it felt like service in that sense,
and purposeful,
and it was also wonderful to have a professional space where I could process everything that I was going through as a mother, but that also didn't limit me artistically, because it was 1 day a week, so I could still go off and do 50 million other things and then come back and be in my community of moms. So it would have been an ideal place to be pregnant. But then, as soon as we found out the show was ending, I found out in the space of a week. My dad died, I found out I was pregnant, and Great Expectations was canceled.
What?
Yes.
How did you process all of that?
I didn't. I swallowed it, and I faced my front and I went forward. And I think I carried so much of this trauma inside of me, the trauma of, being a working artist, a working mother, being a provider, the relationship traumas that you go through, all of it, the trauma of hypervisibility as a Black woman, all of it. I carried it. And until I got into therapy, when I was working on Venus, the Venus versus Modernity, the play that I did about Saki Bartman, which was a big healing tool for me to unpack a lot around hypervisibility, the abuse of the Black female body, fame as how fame can be weaponized against people, all that kind of stuff, right? That was a catalyst for me starting to unpack a lot of issues in my life and in my work. That led me also to go back into therapy.
Wow.
And that's where I really started to work through this stuff and work through the sense of heaviness that I felt around my calling as an artist, because it was starting to feel like, God, why did you give me this gift if it's just gonna come?
And
but then the work that I did with my therapist allowed me to separate issues and see things with more perspective, see that my gift and my work and even my relationship with my family, all these things are still pure, right? But they exist within the context of this environment, of everything that has happened before, of everything that's happened in these relationships, of people's limitations as well. Because I didn't want to see the limitations of the people around me, and I didn't want to set boundaries either, I was expecting that people would understand somehow through osmosis the way I make an effort to understand and be empathetic and blah, 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 all my trauma responses, right? Instead of communicating and effectively saying, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and shaping my life accordingly.
You're touching on so many things that a lot of people themselves have not even got to a point where they can just put it on the table, let alone sorting it.
When I see this coming back on TikTok, it's because Gwen, I'm disarmed now. I'm here telling my business to the world on Zoto Abantu's internet. Guys,
I love that it's Zoto Abantu's internet, not Beyonce. I have to ask, because I think it's such a critical part of your story, and you will share as much as you feel comfortable to. In that week, Papa dies.
Yeah.
You find out you're pregnant.
Yeah. Show gets cancelled. My steady gets cancelled. Because you ask me as a freelancer, it's like, you have different clients and different jobs that you do, but you usually have that one that is like the anchor.
Yes.
That was my anchor for such a long time, and then it was gone.
So the question is around, how does a Lebo Mashile and her relationships with men get to where she is, this version of you that we see? Because we know all of these things start with fathers, right? And that starts to inform the men you choose, that starts to inform certain things. But I want for a moment to tap into your brain, because I feel like my feminism is not the same as other women's feminism, because of how I got here and what my true agenda is. Because we all have agendas. Maybe when people are like, clever blacks at 702 have agendas. Listen, there are agendas for finding truth. There are agendas for standing up for the voiceless. But I'm curious as to how yours got shaped to where it is, because I've been open about the fact that my dad and I had a very difficult relationship when we were growing up. Today we're the best boombas.
I see.
We are
it's
besties.
Such a beautiful thing to see.
But not everybody would have been able to overcome some of the things that we went through.
We didn't. My father, it was a train wreck. It was a mess, that relationship. And shame, it was a mess up until the point where he died,
So with all of that, where now this person passes away.
Yeah.
And I can tell from how you speak, you get it 100% on an intellectual level.
Yeah.
How did you process and get closure when you had to grieve him multiple times?
Oh my God,
right?
babes.
You're able to speak about him from such a matured hindsight perspective. You're seeing him very objectively more than subjectively, because you're not heavily emotional about it. But in real life, there's a little girl who's like, your dad let you down. So how did you close that? How did you get closure for that? Because we know so many people in situations where like they still are living with the reality that their dad didn't, or their mom didn't live up to being the parent they needed.
I feel like, you know, now that my father has transitioned, I can see the ways in which he tries to show up. For example, after my father died, the child that I was pregnant with ended up being born on my mother's birthday.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, it's like give and take, you know? It's like death and rebirth, you know? And I knew that my father had to have a hand in that. I mean, my son was born a little bit late because the anesthetist was late because he was coming from a different job. He was born at 20 past midnight on my mom's birthday. You know, had the anesthetist been on time, it would have been the day before. So I was like, okay, that's my dad. That's my father trying to say in his own way. And I think raising boys as well, like because my father also was honest about the fact, my father never hit us. If the times I was clapped as a child, I was clapped by my mom. My dad didn't hit us, you know? And my father was like, I'll never hit you because I was beaten to a pulp. And if I beat you, I'm scared of where I'm gonna stop. So I've also never had a man put hands on me because I didn't grow up with men who put hands on me in that way, you know, which is not to say that I haven't experienced other kinds of things, but you know, so it's like when I started to look at my children growing up and realizing, oh, wow, you know, my eldest boy is gonna be 14 tomorrow. By the time my father was 14, they were already used to drinking in the trains, you know? By the time he was 8 years old, he had been abused like his whole life, you know? I look at my children and I still see their freshness and their sweetness and their softness and their innocence. And I imagine who would they be had they been incubated in all of this abuse. It's taken a long time for me to be able to have that kind of compassion, you know, but it's also compassion for myself as well, you know, because I think children, and Great Expectations taught me this, is that children internalize everything and make it about themselves. So this person is an alcoholic. This person is not showing up for me. They are an alcoholic and they're not showing up for me because I'm bad, because I'm wrong, because I'm unlovable. Having children has made me realize that my shortcomings are mine. I cannot blame these people for this. I walked into being the role of being their mom fully cooked with a bunch of experiences and information and traumas and you know what I mean? I cannot now blame them, you know? And it still doesn't mean that my children have experienced a perfect childhood. They're also going to be in therapy at 25 and I'll have to be on the phone with, you know, a glass of red wine apologizing to them for things I'm doing now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at least I think we have more tools. Like what access, my father thought that therapy was things for white people, you know what I mean? Well, like, you know, they didn't, like the tools that we have for personal development, the resources that we have, the stuff that we have online.
The realization is that I had, because I had a similar experience when I went in for a ketamine infusion. So that experience was... As you were talking about, you look at your son that's going to turn 14 and you imagine your dad. When I was in my infusion, I saw both my parents as little 2-year-olds.
Oh my
And my level of
Was that the dream that you had while you were?
No, so it's not the dream, but it's almost like the thought just crossed my mind of like, what was mama like? And then I imagined the world they were living in. And I imagined what they had in the household, knowing that they were poor, knowing that, you know, my dad's dad was also abused. So knowing all the things that I knew, and I had a new level of compassion, but I genuinely understand now, like in real time, why they say children can heal you. Because you see how that circle went completely together. And for me, I see my grandmother in my son. But I think even to answer the question that I'm asking you, is the closure came when you had to be a parent in circumstances not in your control, making decisions, knowing that even in this moment you're doing the best that you can, but you also recognize that he'll be in therapy, at 25. Like that is the healing thing, is recognizing, because it's one thing to say our parents did their best. It really is another thing to actually understand what that means.
I spoke about this with my therapist many times, Hore. I don't think that there is such a thing as closure. I think it's like, you know how rings grow around a tree, like every year the ring grows. I think it's like that with trauma and with our core issues, is that at the core this thing is there, and then with time you grow and you grow and you grow,
and capacity builds to carry it.
And you get new perspective on it, right? Because it's 360. So sometimes you're looking at it from there, sometimes you're looking at it from there, sometimes you're looking at it from, but I don't feel like an abandoned daughter anymore, because I learned that I have the tools to be able to cultivate beautiful community and support systems and partnership. And I've learned that, family takes so many different forms. And I've learned that it doesn't have to be perfect, right? I mean, I am a raging perfectionist, and especially when it comes to my work. And I've just had to learn as well, to put yourself under that kind of pressure. I was putting myself under that kind of pressure. I wanted my work to be perfect because my life wasn't. And my work was something that I had control over. But then trying to make my work perfect made me hate my work, because it's not meant to be that. And the beauty of creativity is when things fall apart. It's when the lights go out and you bounce back from it. It's when the sound goes out and you recover. It's when you forget your lines and I jump in for you. That's when like the real magic happens. That's when you go home and you're proud of yourself, But I was denying myself that because I was looking for perfection.
So then, if you were so comfortable at the time being excited to share your pregnancy, why was it never a thought because you've kept your private life very private,
Definitely,
right?
Yeah.
Why will you never expose? I'll tell you what I suspect.
Yes.
Because your public life is your life's work.
Yes.
You do not want anything compromising that.
Absolutely. And also, I mean, I don't know how, I cannot see how, as a woman in a patriarchal, misogynistic society, you benefit from inviting people into that aspect of your life. I think you invite so much harm into your life by doing it. And I don't say this
even if it was Idris Elba, you wouldn't tell us.
And then, Ksasa, you know what? When you're a public figure, if we're not Idris Elba,
yes,
as attractive as Idris Elba is, it makes him even more attractive, and it also makes women brave. Now it's like, okay, now I'm diving into his DMs. Now I'm there. I'm making myself a part of the relationship.
They say
I've seen it. Happy with that guy. You know what I mean? It's a terrible thing, and I think also because I experienced it early on, that cannibalistic way that people can latch onto you when they're looking for a come up. Do you know what I mean? And and there's a lot, look, there's great, wonderful, incredible, beautiful men out there. There's, I'm not here to bash, but there's also a lot of ashy men out there who are very happy to attach themselves to a successful woman because they know that life is going to open up once they do, So I don't want to be in any way vulnerable to that. I don't want to be vulnerable to somebody who is looking for publicity, I tend to get into relationships with people who are also private, because I'm actually very private. I'm loud, but I'm private. I do, I've got an extrovert part of my personality, but I'm actually very introverted. I like being at home. I like a quiet life. I like few people in my life. I have few friends. I like stability.
So Orasa fela go Twitter.
I'm loud in the streets. I'm loud with my work. Every Instagram, yonkindow. But I'm not going to what is precious to me. I'm very, 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 very protective of. And I also understand that because of the way misogyny plays itself out and the way that people use women's previous relationships, the harm that was done to women in previous relationships against them in perpetuity.
Forever.
I mean, I've done interviews where a guy reminds me on air about somebody that I dated like 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? And I'm there to talk about myself and to talk about my work. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's so easy to use relationships with men as a weapon to degrade women.
And to take away from what you've built.
To take away from what you've built. And if you're not with a guy who is also checking his own misogyny, right? If you're not with somebody who's not constantly examining themselves, it's very easy to be with a man who just falls into that, because the society kind of lends itself to that, because everybody's doing it all the time.
Have you dated a white guy?
Yes, I have.
Why do I feel like you would never?
I have.
But he was European.
Yes, he was.
I'm like, did she date Fanda Merva?
Yes, he was.
I feel like you wouldn't be capable of dating a Fanda Merva.
I got time for Kobas.
You got time for Kobas.
I got time for Kobas.
I feel like you're going to have time for Kobas because you want to go be an activist there by his family. That's why you got time. You want to be an activist there showing them pictures of 76.
Oh my
saying,
God.
Where your grandparents on their day.
I'm not trying to change Kobas's gogo. Oma, you can stay how you are. Opa, you can stay how you are. Look, I think also being this age as well is like, I don't have fantasies of like starting from scratch, building a life with somebody. You know what I mean? He's gonna come with his life, his career, his kids, his responsibilities. I'm coming with mine. Where we meet is where we meet. Where it grows is where it grows to. But I'm not, at this stage of my life, I'm not looking for like white picket fences and a picture to post on Instagram and to be all up in your mother's life. No, I don't want that. You come when you're done with all that, and then and you can make a bride,
and then have a good. Do you want to get married? Like, is it something you want, or is it something that when the moment's happening, you're saying, I hope he's gonna propose, and then you're like, did I say that? Oh my gosh. Did I say I hope he's going to propose?
The closest I've been to marriage is probably with the fathers of my kids. Both of them, I thought that I would end up getting married to them, but it didn't work out that way. Yeah. But I think having children is even in many ways, it's like the most kind of permanent contract that you can have with another individual, So I know I'm still doing soul work in those relationships. Marriage, getrouw, twang, twang, twang.
Yes. Oloroka shweshwe man.
Rejive. Tlashapa step, will you be MC?
I will.
You'll MC and you'll say, Kobas, we saw you coming, Kobas. We manifested you.
I kind of feel like you would be those people who you would say, I'm having dinner at my house, and then we'd get them killing y'all. Like,
you know me
I
very
feel like
well.
You would do.
That's exactly what I would do to you. I'd say, Aparaso,
yes.
This is a dinner, we're celebrating my what, and then you get there and again.
Killing y'all. Why did the two relationships end? Do you think the child brought up having a child with someone brought up issues that you didn't see prior?
From the second you get pregnant, from the second that you have children, it's like everything that you were not looking at in the relationship, the things that you were side-eyeing, that you didn't want to see, that you wanted to ignore, it all comes out. It all comes out in the wash, I've never doubted whether the fathers of my kids love their kids, that I know, which is a blessing, but it's a process, man. It's such a, co-parenting is, it's an exercise, I think, in humility, in really having to remember that at the center of this is this kid, you know? And sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes it's terrible. Sometimes it's horrible. Sometimes it's extremes in both camps, you know? But I think what I'm grateful for is that my children are growing up in an ecosystem of love, you know? I want to get married? You know what I want? I think I want the party. I want that.
You want the wedding, but not the marriage.
Well, I want the partnership. I do want the partnership. I think it's because probably the standard that I hold marriage to, you know, is maybe so high, and I don't know, you know. If I find that level of partnership and intimacy and, you know, and safety, stability, security, love, all that, you know, then yeah, I think about it. I think about being Mrs. Fundamental.
How do you know you didn't sabotage yourself because of all of the things
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I was sabotaging myself from the choice of saying you know. I mean, but it's like I forgive myself as well, because if I didn't go through all that, my babies wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be living the life that I'm living right now. If it took me all of that trauma and mistakes, you know, and these other incredible humans who came into my life to make these kids, you know, if it took that for me to have this experience of this life, then I'm grateful for it, man.
And you never talk about your babies. And I so respect keeping them private, but I have to ask, are they autistic like you are?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
I can see proud mommy smiles there.
They are. They're amazing human beings. They're intelligent and talented, and they drag me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like the butt of jokes in my house, and they're funny. They got a messed up sense of humor like I have.
Did you help them write their poems for English? Be honest.
No, they wrote their own stuff.
Tell us now.
No, they actually blow me away. Sometimes I will have the person who's the culprit of controlling homework across generations. The project is my mom.
Is it?
My mom has been doing it from her brothers to us, to my kids. My mother is a person that, like you, I actually have to buy my mother a coloring book and be like, yeah, how? This is yours. My mother will take over a project and be like, take this to school. So, but my children, Shem, they are, I see the best parts of all of us in them.
How do you protect them from yourself trying to live vicariously through them? And the living vicariously through them, people always think is like, oh, you're going to be a dance mom. Sometimes it's also when I was 8, I didn't have this, you must have this wonderful experience. Like, how do you protect them from that? And I'm asking for me as well. Protecting your children from yourself.
From yourself. Ooh. I think that if your cup is not full, you can't pour into somebody else. So if I see that my anxiety is through the roof, I'm nitpicking all the time, we've had 2 shouting mornings this week, you know, like if I can see her now, like whatever it is that I'm feeling on the inside is spilling out and I'm making the house uncomfortable, then I've got to ask myself, like, what is it that I'm not getting? What is it that from sleep to regular meals to sharing enough shady memes with you to, you know, to especially an art, like getting out and getting inspired. Like I've had to also learn again, because, you know, with small children, like small children have a more intense social life than you do.
Yes.
You spend more time taking them to their parties and to their play dates and to their things. So I was out, but I wasn't going out doing my own stuff. I'd stopped doing the stuff that I love unless it was related directly to my work, right? So I've had to go back now again to making appointments with myself, like, oh, there's an opening. I really want to see this. I'm going to watch this. Oh, Wicked has come out. I'm going to watch it with my theater kid friends and go and make a noise, and then I'm going to go watch it with my babies, you know? I feel I'm not feeling myself. Okay, I'm going to go and get my hair done. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, my kids are only going to be as happy as the mood that I set in the house. I can only be as happy as they are. You are what's the saying? You're as happy as your unhappiest child.
Yes.
You know,
and
so it's a mutual thing. If I'm not pouring into myself, they can feel that.
Your children will be as happy as you take care of yourself.
This is it.
Because I think that's what it is, and I'm also learning that the more you take better care of yourself, the happier your children will be.
And you teach them as well.
Yeah.
This is what self-care looks like, and sometimes it's not the same, you know. But if it matters to me, if it's important to me that I go and I watch this concert and I see my friend, or I experience this podcast, I express my creativity, I give of myself, I receive, then I have more to give to my kids, you know? And I also, it's such a pleasure now that they're bigger, because they get to come with me and they get to see stuff and they get to experience stuff and they have their own opinions. They're like, oh, that was really good, but that guy's whack. And that night, you know, the other night you killed it, but today you seemed like, are you tired? Like, they've got opinions. They're discerning. They are discerning little people, and they got good taste. I like them.
What was your
I like my kids. Do you ever experience that? Do you have that feeling of, I love you as a human being, but I also like you?
Look, doesn't mean he's not sometimes annoying.
Deeply.
He's very annoying, but I like him. I want to know, of all the works that you have done, because you've done some phenomenal projects for gender-based violence, for so many levels of activism, what was the most fulfilling project of your life? And you can't say your children.
From like activist projects
Can
or
be
creative
anything,
projects?
Anything. The one that even when you think about it, it puts aromat in your spirit at that moment.
Oh my gosh. Yo, there's so many. I think the thing that jumps into my mind is probably Venus. Even though I've done like a couple of productions since then. I've done 1, 2, 3 productions since then. But I think Venus came into my life at a time when I needed it. I had been working with Pamela Nomvete on the stage adaptation of her autobiography called Nyadansa. And I wrote some material for that piece. She adapted her book into a play, and she had like music and dance involved. And it was such a healing experience, because she was writing about what was going on in her life at the peak of her fame. Like, we saw Pamela Nomvete like breaking boundaries, kicking ass on South African television, doing what had never been done before for Black women actresses, right? But she was experiencing like violence. She was experiencing people stalking her in her complex. She was experiencing people who didn't know the difference between what was real and what was fake.
She was character Nziki Lukele, yes.
And also experiencing the trauma of men. Like, I mean, what we were talking about just before with the conversation that we had about the man who comes in and then becomes your manager as a creative, and then comes and does
over and
does rubbish. Wow, ravaza. So she was writing about that. And it was my first time seeing somebody explain it in a South African context and just laying it bare. I felt I read the book in 2 days. I didn't sleep. I read it through the night, you know, and then worked on the stage adaptation. And then I realized in my spirit, like, I have more to say. There's more that I have to say. So I started a workshop process with Pam, and the story that came out of me was the story of Sarki. I think because Sarki is the embodiment of so many different experiences that act on Black women's lives. She's like the archangel of Black female representation, and so much of what she went through is still what we go through now. So working through her experience, working through her experiences, and deciding on a perspective. You know, Sarki, when she was performing at Piccadilly, she was doing 10 shows a day. I mean, this was before she got into human zoos and before the stuff. But she was doing 10 shows a day. She curated her own costume. She was playing instruments. She was singing in multiple languages. She was an artist.
But people don't remember that. They just remember the body.
She's never positioned as that. She's never positioned as an artist. So I was like, damn, this could happen to me. This could happen to you. 100 years from now, if history keys in on the worst of what social media says, and then that comes to define you, then 99.999% of who you are gets lost. And this keeps happening over and over and over and over and over again, particularly to Black women. Black women are dealt with, Black women artists are reduced into the smallest, little, tiniest box that people can chew and swallow and manage, right?
But I also think maybe the project gave you permission to be more honest and to look at things you weren't looking at. But as we wrap up, what happened to your poetry group? Where Nsiki Mazwai, what happened to that group?
I think life happened to that group. I was in a poetry group between 2003 and about 2005 called Feel a Sister with Maisha Jenkins, Lebo Mashile, Nsiki Mazwai, and myself. We met because we had been on the poetry circuit in different spaces, but we found that we had similar experiences. And the person who convened us was Maisha. And when we got together, we realized that the things that we were talking about, like the stuff that we were writing about, was the same. Each of us was being criticized for writing about similar subjects by men. Oh, your writing is too soft. Oh, you're too feminist. Oh, you hate women. You hate men. Blah, 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 blah. We got together and we realized that our poems talk to each other. So, I mean, Feel a Sister was such an empowering experience because it taught me as well that you have the power to create and produce your own stuff. Like,
you don't have to wait for
you
someone.
don't have to wait. I remember when we went and spoke to Hot Sticks to stage a show, how could I forget the club in Newtown, the old jazz club.
I know
Hot Sticks. I know
talking about.
How could I forget, man? But anyway, not the bass line. What?
It's
it
not
will come.
Yes, one of those. Yes.
Yeah. We staged our first show there, and it felt like it was like a miracle. I was like, oh my God, this is how you do. You talk to somebody, and then they get the bar, and you get the door. And then we put together press packs. I mean, those are the days of press packs where you had to like send out your press release and your pictures and run around all over town and give it to different people.
To come.
Yeah, but the first time I saw copy I had written in the paper, I was like, wait, is this how press works?
Yes.
What do you mean? So much of the groundwork of the kind of artist that I am now was done at that time. But it was also a time when the world was opening up to me as well. I was starting to work in theater. I was starting to work in television. I was starting to work in film. When I was
So in essence, that whole vehicle served its purpose at that time, because all of you in your individual rights are doing your own thing.
Yeah, and Maisha, God rest her soul, the impact that she made in South Africa as somebody who was an activist in America and made a decision to come back to South Africa at a time of transition, to be able to make that kind of cultural impact in her final, in the late part of her life, It's a huge thing, right? To be a part of umzabalazo for a country and then go there and contribute to the arts movement is quite a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful full circle. I've always been about collaboration. I don't believe in, there's a part of my work that gets created definitely in isolation because I write and I have to, but I believe in collaboration. I believe in working across skills and working across mediums,
I think it's only going to continue to grow because I see for you fewer commissioned projects and more projects that are funded that are yours.
That's what I love.
I love that stuff for you. But my final question is going to be the hardest question
Don't
you've ever
say
been asked.
that. Oh my God. After this conversation where I've told my business.
In one word, how would you describe your life today?
Satisfying.
I love that.
I love you.
I love that for you.
Thanks.
Satisfying. I know you and I could talk forever and ever. And I wanted on record that I am still a fan of your work and just how brilliant your mind is. I love watching you fight with people and piss people off. It's one of my favorite things. And
that's your friend saying that. This is my girl saying, I love watching you fight with people.
No, because also when you guys are fighting Lebo, less of you are available to fight me. So I love that for us. But thank you for coming and just for being open. I know it's always interesting when you know somebody personally. Like, I also get nervous to sit, but I just love letting the conversation flow because I feel like you and I could do this once every 2 months and it would be a whole different conversation.
But Jolofina, you made me say things I've never said during the people. Will you be there to deal with the fallout when I'm climbing in your DMs?
I will be there.
You must be available.
I will be available there to stand firm and defend you. Guys, if you have not watched also the Unpacked episode with Lebo Mashile, she's in season 1 where we talk about living in exile, and she's together with Malusi Gwangwa.
That was an amazing experience as well.
Please go and watch that
During
episode
the
as well.
pandemic.
During the panorama, and just get insight into that part of Lebo's life if you don't know. But also check out her millions of bodies of work. She is brilliant. She slept on. I promise you those 180 characters are not all she is. They are words and words for days. But thank you for joining us. Comment down below who you want to see. Don't forget to subscribe. My love, I love you.
Uthandwa ndim awazi mba.